welcome to another edition of North Penn Answers. My name is Josie Charnock, and I am a member of the Board of School Directors. As we all know, there continues to be no agreement on the Pennsylvania state budget. On today's program, we'll discuss how this budget impasse affects the North Penn School District budget and programs. Joining me now is Walter Brown, School Board Member and Finance Committee Chair, and Dr. Curt Dietrich, Superintendent of North Penn School District. Welcome.
Yeah.
Curt, can you tell us where we are with the state budget discussions?
Well, as it stands right now, as we're taping this show, we don't have a state budget. There are a lot of moving parts. We have a governor that was elected under a clear mandate in his mind when he ran, under a platform with some things he believed in, and we have a legislature likewise elected under what they believe was a clear mandate, and unfortunately they're not reaching agreement. So we don't have a state budget, but the moving parts include the pension reform, property tax reform, whether we should tax Marcellus shale, modernization of the state liquor system. So all those things are in play right now, and apparently compromise has been elusive and we still don't have a budget.
And Walter, I'm sure this has been discussed at the Finance Committee. What are the ramifications for the school district?
It's going to have impacts across the entire state. It looks like it's going to cause trouble. It's going to cause problems. There's about half a dozen schools that are probably, are actually having problems right now because they aren't receiving the funding that they need to run and operate from the state. As it stands, though, for North Penn, we're in a much better situation, and because a lot of the funds that we use to invest in our schools are actually coming from state taxes, or rather from individual income taxes and from property taxes.
Right.
Then
so the local level.
It's actually at a local level, and we're going to be comfortable for several months to come.
I want to turn back to you, Curt, and ask, are there contingency plans in place for us?
Sure. Right now we're working under the assumption we'll get a budget eventually, and as Mr. Brown had mentioned, we're good probably for a while yet because of the fact we don't get that much of our funding from the state. Most of it comes from local. There are a couple funds, though, that we're not getting that we're concerned about. The federal money is being held up because federal money passes through the states. And we do have federally funded programs. There are the title programs. So that would be help for the students that are learning the English language. That would be help for students who are learning how to read. Those title programs, we're not getting the funds for those, but they are federal funds. We know the amount, and it's more of a technicality. So we're going ahead and operating those programs absent the federal funds, knowing that when we finally do get a state budget, we'll have that money in order to reimburse ourselves, if you will, for those expenses.
Okay.
There's another area also, and that would be the intervention funds, where in the past there was something called the Ready to Learn grant, and then something called the Accountability Block grant. And those funds we've been using in part to help students that are struggling. Because we don't have any state budget yet, we had held off in hiring those people. But we're getting closer to the time now where we're going to go ahead and hire them with the understanding that we'll be able to get that money in due time. We looked at both the governor's budget and at the legislature's budget, and we're going to take a conservative approach but make sure that we can have those funds used to be able to help students who are struggling.
So it sounds like, Walter, we're good at least for several more months, or until we run out?
The official date, or the official month that we're concerned is near May. But the bottom line, in echoing what Dr. Dietrich was saying, was we're trying to do everything that we can, everything in our power to make sure that this is transparent to our students, that this is not something that they're seeing directly the ramifications from, and if there are funds or there are programs in which it looks like, and it does look like, that these funds will eventually free up, that we're doing everything possible to make sure that these students are receiving those benefits without delay.
Right. And are there any long-term effects from this?
Well, there's another factor at play, and that's the new basic ed funding formula. There was a movement, and North Penn School District with the North Penn Board of Directors examined this issue at one of our work sessions earlier this year to see what is a fair funding formula. And with the new funding formula, the way those monies get divided is at play right now. And we look closely at that. We support the funding formula that the Commission is recommending. It would help North Penn School District. Over the years, there was something called hold harmless, and there were some districts that had declining enrollment, and they were held harmless and given the same amount from the year prior, plus maybe a 1% or 2% increase. Well, over time, that's had a big impact. Conversely, in the case of North Penn, we've had increasing enrollment during that time period. And remember, we didn't have a funding formula truly in place since the late 90s, so it's been a concern for us. We like the Commission's recommendation, and I had a look at the way that money would be divided. It does give an advantage to North Penn because it takes into account the fact that we do have some factors that need to be funded. So the number of students learning English for the first time, for example, is one of the parts of that formula. The number of total students we have is a part of that formula. So it does mean an increase
both for us have been increasing.
They have been. So since we last had a funding formula, you know, we haven't seen as much money as we should be seeing. But with that funding formula, that'll help. Now, the question is, how quickly can they put that formula into place?
Right.
Because the pie is only so large.
Yeah.
So the way they divide up the pie is what we're having a lot of discussions with our legislators and our governor about. So in due time, I think that'll be a much fairer funding formula. But there's no doubt that it'll take time in reality to be able to get that full effect of the new funding formula.
And do you think, is it possible that the state will not pass a budget for this year?
Well,
I guess it's always a possibility.
I think anything's possible, of course, but I think in due time the pressures will be so significant that they'll have to reach some sort of a compromise. And, you know, compromise is important, and I think right now it's been elusive, but I think people feel strongly about their positions, and when they feel strongly about their positions, it's hard for them to think of another way to do it. But there's been some discussion now, should they expand the gaming funds? That's a whole other discussion, but they're trying to find ways to generate more revenue without increasing, you know, the taxes to the magnitude perhaps that some would like to do.
And are there any effects on the 2016-17 budget as we look to that while we're waiting for the budget to pass for this year?
Well, it makes it difficult for us because we don't know what to budget for. We don't know if it's going to mean additional funds or maybe just a small amount of additional funds. I think there's pretty much agreement from all sides that they want to increase education funding. The question is, to what degree? Right. And then the other question is, what way will revenue be raised? And that whole property tax discussion, property tax, of course, is a very unpopular tax, but be careful what you ask for because there's some downsides of not having a property tax. Property tax is a very stable tax, so you know what you're getting, you can build your budgets accordingly. If you go to more of a sales tax or an income tax, that's more volatile with the economy. It just means then that if we're going to be doing that, we have to be more flexible and agile and be able to adjust more quickly to changes in the economy, which is not impossible. Right. However, right now, we have a property tax, and they would have to raise the income tax and the sales tax significantly if they were going to totally eliminate the property tax. In the case of North Penn, that would be really substantial. Right. The other thing that happens is the redistribution of money. In Montgomery County, you have higher incomes, so you would have more money sent to Harrisburg and not nearly as much returning, very likely. So the way they divide that pie would be a part of a big discussion that we want to be a part of that discussion.
The Montgomery Elementary renovation project is coming soon, and how is the budget going, or will the budget affect that renovation project?
Actually, Josie, it looks like there's nothing that we're going to let get in the way of us moving forward the Montgomery Elementary School. We're very excited. I think that a lot of the renovations are well due, that we need to actually make those improvements, and we're going to do everything that we can to make those. And at the moment, it doesn't seem as though the budget is going to be an obstacle on our way for that.
Does the Finance Committee look at other areas besides the budget itself? I guess renovation projects have to go through the Finance Committee as well, right? Yeah. So it seems like everything sort of filters through the Finance Committee.
At the end of the day, everything seems to take money, doesn't it? Yeah, so everything does sort of seem like it funds its way or finds its way through the Finance Committee.
That makes sense.
So there's lots of different things that we have to look at, and amongst those are the property taxes that are coming in, and as of August, we were very strong. So we actually have seen a lot of money come in, and we're meeting the goals that we thought we were for where our income streams were going to come from. So we're very, very comfortable and excited about the school year.
I think I've answered my own question, but why would anyone, or why should anyone attend the Finance Committee? It sounds like because everything runs through the Finance Committee.
At the end of the day, there's very little that you wouldn't hear about funnel up
Right.
through the Finance Committee before you end up at the Action Committee meeting. So a lot of times I think that the public, everybody in the neighborhood wants to visit the Action Committee because it seems like that's where obviously the action takes place. Unfortunately, at that point, we've already had the conversations, we've already gone through so many of the details in the subcommittees that when you get to the actual action meeting,
Yes.
it seems so fast that people who are hearing the ideas for the first time think we're almost running over them. But what I think if we could get people to some of these subcommittee meetings and the Finance Committee meetings, we entertain conversation there. We would love to hear more from the neighborhood, and we'd love to hear more from the different districts that we're representing,
Right.
so that we could get more conversation. And if there's ideas that they want to float up, that's an excellent opportunity to get that little bird in the room.
It's a nice way of putting it. So I have to switch gears a little bit and ask you, so what do you enjoy most about being a school board member?
I think one of the things that I really enjoy is actually being able to see a lot of the things that my children are going to be involved with and that they're going to be able to be involved with as time goes on. I think that one of the things that wasn't as transparent to me before I got so heavily involved were all of the activities that North Penn really has and are available. So it's actually been a very exciting chance for me to really see and help navigate my children through the system and make sure that they're involved with these different activities that I get several times a month now to actually see and hear about. And I think that line into the community is amazing. So I've really enjoyed every moment I've had.
So Curt and Walter, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been really insightful, and I hope everyone feels the same way. If you are interested in attending a Finance Committee meeting, dates and times are on the North Penn website under the School Board tab. That's it for this edition of North Penn Answers. I hope this episode has been informative. We appreciate all the questions, and we encourage all members of our community to participate in this dialogue. If you have a question you'd like to see answered on this show, please email northpennanswers@npenn.org. Post questions in our Say What section of the website or ask in person. We encourage all members of the community to send in your questions. Thank you and have a good night.